The Legion's Exorcist, a novel of God's Legion, by J.T. Dowdy. Chapter 11. There comes a time in everyone's life when they make a mistake, or feat so monumental it shapes the very fabric of their reality. This decision will ultimately and irrevocably change your destiny. I pray that when this eventually happens to you, you choose to make use of this opportunity for good. The Way. Last chapter. Verse 10. The angry clacking of stacked leather boot heels on metal bore down like the bringer of the end times. Creator Elohim and the angel Elileth were standing well away from the exorcist who had almost killed them all through ignorance. Norman was down on both knees with his head bowed. He was sure he was dead. He just didn't know it yet. Creator Lilith reached down to grab a handful of the front of the priest's shirt to haul him into the air. She was angry and was not as gentle as she should have been when she slammed him against the side of a large metal pipe to yell at him. By all of the gods, what did you do to cause this insanity? How did you make him lose control and almost kill us all? I'm sorry. Norman whimpered, as his body was spasming, as his nervous system was still backfiring from the horrible events in the webway. Oh God, I'm sorry. God, the woman said, tilting her head to the side like an animal who heard a strange noise. In case you missed the memo, smooth brain, that was God without control back there because of something you did. When we were stopping him from killing you, he almost erased this universe out of spite until his other half showed up and stopped him. So again, what did you do to cause this? She pulled him to where his face was level with hers, so she could look into his eyes as if reading his mind. The female creator's rage evaporated in an instant as she gently set the exorcist down to walk over to where a security railing stopped people from falling into seemingly nothing, since there were no lights down below. It overlooked into a great chasm, where many huge pipes carried the molten potassium and nanites, which acted as the heat exchange fluid for deeper into the structure. She screamed something incoherent into the void as if such an act would help. When she was able to bring herself under control, she groaned. Damn it all, it was an accident. Holy crap, we were so close. It was all an accident. Sister? Elohim asked. Norman was attacked in the webway. Came the female creator's reply. She did not mention he was the one who listened to the voice and caused this incident. He panicked and fell back on his training and prayed while my father tried to get his soul back out from where it had been stuck. Unfortunately, Norman chose a prayer in which he called upon one of his oldest names. We were all almost obliterated over a legitimate accident. Norman had no way of knowing what he was doing, what he did. Holy crap, son. You do not do anything by halves, do you? Norman was slumped on the deck in a near catatonic state. The visage of wrath burned into his mind as it reached out to devour him. He had experienced too many life-altering events beyond mortal comprehension in recent days. His mind was beginning to shut down to protect itself, and in the forefront of his mind there was still the face of wrath coming to devour him as he saw the tens of thousands of burning ruby-red eyes which filled his vision like stars. Elohim was looking back down the way he had come. Is he all right? He asked, meaning the Legion Master. To him, Norman was just a mortal, and the universe made more of his kind easily enough. Lilith turned around, her expression grim. For now, maybe. But it is too early to tell. He will be sequestered and monitored in case he relapses and tries to destroy everything again. Take your angel and go get the information we need. I am taking Norman back to the ship. We will have to be out of action for the time being. Baphomet and I will need to be able to respond quickly in case our father cannot lock that personality away. The leader of the Host Ascendency had many questions, but he could read the room and tell his older sibling was not going to say anything further. He nodded and took Eloleth deeper into the Nexus to go to the central databank. Norman spent the next several days in Sejet's room. The angel herself had been absent for the first couple hours, as she saw if her presence would be needed elsewhere. Eventually, it was decided there was nothing she could do for the Legion Master. She had been carrying food and water to the Exorcist because he had been in a catatonic state from being shell-shocked by his experiences. He had not been able to sleep, but a few pitiful hours from sheer exhaustion. Each time he closed his eyes, he was met by the face he could never forget, and the many glowing red eyes which bore down on him, tempting him. Sejet normally preferred a quiet room while she was reading, but Norman kept spasming and screaming randomly in the silence from the ghostly words of whatever had tried to hijack his vessel in the webway. After a week of being alone with Norman, he woke up screaming again, and the angel decided enough was enough. "Lilith," she called, touching her Silver Legion pendant. "I need you to fix him. He is still damaged and not healing." The voice of the Creator sounded weary, though a Creator could never be physically tired like a mortal. "I am still busy helping the Master." That did it. The angel flew out of her chair to yell, something she would not normally do, and something she definitely would never do towards a Creator under normal circumstances. "Is he not deserving of your help as much as the Master? Is he not worth saving? He is suffering, and I can do nothing except bring him what fuel his body requires and force him to eat by shoving it down his throat." There was a long pause. "You are right. He is just as deserving. Give me one moment." Sejet walked over to the closed door of her quarters and waited, even going so far as to cross her arms and tap one foot on the deck. As soon as the first heavy knock sounded, she opened the door and stepped aside. Lilith walked into the room and looked around. Norman was sitting on a couch with a haunted, far-away look on his face. The muscles in his body were firing spasmodically, and in his hands was the rosary Sejet had placed there earlier that day. Lilith came to kneel down beside Norman on the couch, and even then she towered over him. The priest was holding his rosary, absently running the beads through his fingers from a lifetime of muscle memory, but his mind did not process what he was doing. Neither of the two women knew if the man was mentally reciting liturgies or prayers, but the grim look on Lilith's face seemed to suggest there was something seriously wrong in his mind. "Can you fix him?" Sejet asked. Lilith frowned. "I do not know. From the looks of things, it would seem the shock of joining our little group out of the blue, along with the events he witnessed in the webway, has damaged his sanity. He seemed healthy to me. Why would his joining us have affected him?" Lilith shook her head as she stood up. "Child, do you know how the mortal mind works?" The angel bristled at being called a child, but considering the age of the first made being, the word was apt. Sejet did not understand, and argued. "He is not a mortal anymore." "Sejet, please, your boyfriend was born mortal. Just because he has stopped aging after his ascension like a week ago does not mean it fundamentally changed his physical nature or his mental ability." The angel actually blushed. "The priest is not my boyfriend." Lilith let out a sardonic laugh. She pointed to her right ear and snorted. "Seriously, you said that to me? Me? You two made so much noise in that hotel room it sounded like a disaster. You talk to him more than the rest of us. You let him sleep in your room, and you show him things like y'all are going on dates, and you're going to tell me he is not your boyfriend? He has never asked me out, so I do not consider it official. That is because you intimidate the bejesus out of him. What? Lilith groaned as she rubbed her hands over her face. Come on, girl. Please do not be dense. He knows how old you are. Need I remind you how mortals view your kind? You told him you survived a star being crushed down to a singularity, and then how you got burned by the ejecting stellar matter. Kind of hard to miss that one when you were all pressed up in his business. She pointed to the door of Sejet's quarters where her boots and weapon were. That whip of yours scares the crap out of him. Do I need to paint you more of a picture? Think of how he must feel. His entire life and reason for existing was ripped out from under him in the blink of an eye because my brother cannot keep his gobstopper closed and read a room. He found out he died and became a mortal angel, which they do not have in the Host Ascendency, and so he does not have any experiences or stories for what is expected of him now. His adopted daughter is trying to kill him. His religion will excommunicate him despite a lifetime of service. He has no home and no future with the culture that raised him, and we threw him into the deep end of the pool. Plus, he made love to an angel, and I think that is the one which has been eating him up the most. The angel was frowning, as she didn't understand. Sejet, Lilith pressed. Mortals are not allowed to touch angels in his culture. Ever. Like, they are executed immediately for doing so. Ever. Oh, I didn't know that. Your culture has the same rules. You jumping his bones in that hotel room really messed with his mind. What else have I forgotten? Oh, yeah. He screwed up and God capital G tried to kill him for it. He does not know that facet of the master is only a tiny piece of him. To Norman, anything associated with the master is God big G. Do you get my point now? The kid has been on the biggest mental roller coaster of his life. He could barely cope with just one of the events of the past month, and just think about what we have actually been doing. What have we put him through? No mortal mind can handle all of this. They were not designed to. True beings of spirit matured far, far slower than mortals had to. By the jaded standards of the Legion, the Empire Angel was young, even though she was over 9 billion standard years old. Understanding was dawning on the angel. Sejet was looking at the broken man with seemingly new appreciation for all of what he had gone through after Lilith explained it to her. Do you get it now? Lilith asked. It was inevitable this would happen to our priest. He should be commended for holding out this long before breaking down. The kid has inflexible will, no doubt about it. Can you fix him? Lilith shook her head. Baphomet and I suck at dealing with memories, if by fixing him you mean putting him back to the way he was before he broke. I am sorry, but the only one who can do what you are asking is me. The voice of the Legion Master called out, and then he was suddenly standing in the room. He looked worn out and exhausted like a mortal who had been up for weeks, surviving on energy drinks while chain smoking. Baphomet came crashing through the door, screaming, "Lilith, the old man escaped. Oh. Okay, so he's here now." The male creator's eyes narrowed as he judged how he would need to restrain his father if he went berserk again. The Legion Master waved a hand. He is contained. The last few times you said that turned out to be a lie. I owe Father Kant. I did this to him, and it is my responsibility to undo my actions. He turned to look at Sejet. Since he is incapable of answering for himself or making decisions, it is up to you to be his voice. The angel looked dubious, as she had little understanding for what was going on. To her, there was no reason to ask another if the man should be fixed. It should just be done. Finally, she said, "I am not the priest's keeper." The Legion Master was having none of this after what he had went through to bring the priest's soul back from the webway. You slept with him, you bought him. Now, tell me what Father Kant would want me to do. Saget stared at the broken man. At first, her excursion in the hotel was because she needed to calm the storm of her own soul, and she had figured the man would offer better entertainment than watching trashy holodramas. However, she had grown to like her conversations with the priest. He was odd from having been raised in a society different than hers, but the man was honest and seemed to be a good man who was trying to do the best he could in his upended circumstances. She eventually was forced to admit she did like him. He would make for an agreeable companion as long as he did not do something foolish, like getting himself and the universe erased. After all, she was lonely as others found her to be an oddity. Most people took one look at her appearance and personality and were immediately turned off from even casual conversation. "Fix him," she said. "I will do what I can." God replied, "This will be only a moment for you, but this may take several lifetimes for him. When we get back, and if he has returned to some semblance of normal, be gentle with him for a bit until he gets his feet under him." The Legion Master moved to place a hand on Norman's shoulder, and the pair vanished from the room. Norman opened his eyes, which felt like lead weights, to find himself sitting in a large recliner, which was made for someone far larger than himself. The armrests were up at his ears, and his feet dangled off the ledge as if he was a child sitting at a grown-up chair at the dinner table. Around him was a small field of green grass and a few trees which provided overhead shade from a very bright light. The temperature was cool without being cold. There were birds chirping and carousing in the trees, and one fluttered over to the arm of the recliner to look at him quizzically. On the opposite armrest was a small bowl containing large black seeds. His hand felt like tungsten, but he moved to grab one of the seeds and offered it to the small bird. It took the seed and fluttered back up to the tree it had been in, chirping contentedly. He could hear other small animals going about their life around him, but he could not see them as the chair blocked most of his vision. There was the sound of large flapping wings disturbing the air, and the Legion Master floated down to the ground on those wings. His uniform was no longer ragged, but rather resplendent in its intended glory. "Ho there, Father Kant," God said. "Welcome to my office." Well, what you can perceive as my office. It does look a bit different to me, but I think you get the general idea. Norman turned his head slowly to stare, dumbfounded, at what his eyes showed him, at the being whom he thought he knew, but could not place. The face looking back from underneath silver hair and beard looked different, yet was not unkind in its appearance, or frightening. Norman was looking at the wings and frowning. "Oh," God laughed, and it was like the comforting sound of real church bells. He reached back and waved his hand through the wings, which parted like a mirage. "Forgive me for not explaining. What you are seeing is what your mind assumes someone such as I to have here. Remember the classical paintings of angels and beings of spirit from the host? They all have wings for some reason. Actually, I am rather surprised you do not see me wearing some gaudy white robe and one of those ridiculous golden halos your people just love in the holodramas." Father Kant's throat was very dry, but he worked up enough spit to ask, Where am I?" "You are in the Library of Souls. I needed some place to help you put your mind back together after your less-than-ideal experiences in one of the more dangerous places to vacation to." trying to speak through a mouth which felt like coarse-ground glass, was excruciating. I don't remember anything. God came to kneel in the grass in front of the exorcist. That is what I am going to help you with. Like it or not, those memories are a part of you now. I could erase them, but in doing so, I would erase parts of you, and I am unwilling to do that, since it would be like cutting off your hands. As of right now, those memories are blocked. Slowly I will release them to you, and teach you how to handle them, so they are not overwhelming. Basically, I am going to teach you how I cope with everything. To Norman's lethargic mind, the words spoken to him sounded mumbled and far away. You experienced things which no mortal was ever supposed to. For now, let's just say, what you witnessed damaged your sanity. God paused to reach out and grab Norman's wrist with his large hand as the priest was growing agitated, because he did not understand what was happening to him. Do not be afraid. I will show you how to handle such memories to where they no longer hurt you. You will have to live with them. But here, in this place, time as you know it does not exist. We are free to take as long as you need to heal. I will not let you fall, Norman. You just need to believe in me, as I believe in you. A man and a woman wearing white robes came floating down on their own wings to stand next to the kneeling Creator. Since the idea had been planted in his mind, the exorcist viewed them with belted white robes and golden halos. Norman swore he knew them. "Sup, priest," Baphomet said, looking around him before flicking his halo with his finger to sigh. "Man, it has seriously been a long time since I was here last." "We are here for Norman, brother," Lilith said. "Keep your mind on what we are supposed to be doing." "Like we can do anything with memories. We're just here for moral support." God sighed as he looked back to Norman. "Would you like some children? I have a special two for one sale going on you might be interested in. They are even housebroken." Yet another being of spirit came floating down to stand next to God. The figure was bipedal, yet lacked any distinguishing features, and its face was cowled with what appeared to be its robe's large hood. It held out a clipboard to God with many papers on it, and a ridiculously large feather quill pen. "Seriously," God complained, looking up at it. "I am a little busy here with something important. You can sign that yourself." The figure was impassive, as it simply waited for someone to sign off on whatever the paperwork was. It gave the impression it would wait with one outstretched hand for all eternity. Lilith moved to take the clipboard. "We will handle it, Father," she said, knowing other beings would come down in a deluge because God was very lax when it came to day-to-day administrative duties. Two more insubstantial angels came down to stand next to Baphomet with their own clipboards. He groaned and walked away to give his father and Norman space. The Creator called back over his shoulder to the priest. "You better get well soon, priest. You should know I don't do paperwork for just anyone." Norman was having issues concentrating, and when he blinked his eyes felt gritty like they were full of entire deserts worth of sand. Somehow, he knew he was in heaven, or a part of it, but he felt as if he was in a hospital bed after coming out of a coma and major surgery. God looked back to him, and was suddenly sitting in a wooden chair, so he was no longer kneeling on the ground. Time felt like it was passing at a snail's pace. The words coming from the exorcist were slow and stilted, as he had to force his conscious thought on each letter and syllable. "What happened to me? Do you want the truth or a comforting lie first?" "I'll take a lie." God laughed. It was a soothing sound to the soul. You rendezvoused with identical triplet hookers, and they beat you up and stole your wallet before leaving you for dead in an alley, because their pimp had a bad experience in church once. Norman laughed, then stopped himself as the act caused pain to erupt in every cell of his body. This is not your physical body, priest. Think of it like your mind's rendition of your soul. Your soul was damaged in the webway from those mistakes, and I am going to put you back together as best I can. There was something of a memory involving thousands of red eyes. Norman became agitated as he closed his eyes and rocked his head side to side as if trying to get away. No matter where he looked or how hard he closed his eyes, the ruby-red pinpoints of light were following him, staring at him. Large hands took his own to keep him from hurting himself. When the man had calmed down, he asked, "What are those monsters?" "I am sorry, but knowing could invite them to visit you again, and I do not think you want to go down that road. Call them mistakes I made, and leave it at that." The Legion Master looked away, as if ashamed. "I cannot get rid of them for the same reason. I cannot simply just kill Baal and those arrayed against me. They have existed for so long they have their own personalities, but neither can I just get rid of them, because it would be like cutting off my fingers, as they do possess souls that originally came from me. They are a part of me, the same way your soul is part of me. I cannot bring them back into the fold due to their corruption. Yet, neither can I get rid of them for the aforementioned reason. I think I understand," Norman said, and he meant it. The reason given made perfect sense to him. Plus, it also explained the reason why evil was allowed to exist if God was all-powerful. If God kept slicing parts of himself off and deleting them, eventually there would be nothing left of the original. He felt as if he should be doing something more than sitting in a chair, but his limbs felt so heavy and far away. "What do I do now?" "Do you believe in me?" God asked. Norman felt like twice warmed over death, and he was not expecting such a simple yet complex question. It took what felt like agonizing hours for his brain to process such a simple request. Somehow, the exorcist knew the real root of the question was not if he believed in the being which went by different names in front of him. God was asking if he believed in him as a concept, an idea. Host indoctrination claimed Elohim was God capital G, and that all other creators were false gods. That all other creators out in the wider universes were poor imitations and pretenders. Even now Norman was having to fight against the beliefs of a lifetime. However, all that he had seen, all that he had witnessed firsthand, all that other beings of spirit who should have claimed their own creator was God was changing his opinion. He was rapidly coming to understand there was a God, an original maker. Host faith never said one way or the other, but the rank and file people of the host always talked about God being gentle and kind. They told themselves that Elohim and his angels were the way they were because of their mortal imperfections, their sins. Norman didn't know what to believe anymore, but he did know there must be an original architect for creation. Besides, he had been shown by this being not too long ago the memories of the making of creation. Elohim had never shown him anything, only made demands. The archangels of host faith had never done anything for him, only made demands. The angels of his faith used and abused him. But this being, the one his religion claimed was the most evil in all of creation, had shown him things and taken the time to explain when he was confused. Other creators of this strange faith have taken the time out of their labors to show and explain things as well. These infinitely powerful beings of spirit had done something he never thought possible of their kind. They cared. Sitting broken in a recliner, somewhere in heaven, with God looking right at him, and willing to spend the time to fix him instead of discarding him, the exorcist reached a pivotal decision. Not to save his broken soul, not to have his body repaired so it could move, but because he could no longer argue against what his own experiences were telling him. Yes, he finally answered, "I believe in you." A single tear rolled down the face of God, and the being bowed his head to the former mortal in gratitude. "Thank you, Norman. You have no idea how rare that is. Most people claim to believe in me because of what I can theoretically do for them, or because they are afraid of some eternal punishment from me if they do not." God stood up, and the chair he had been using vanished. He held out a hand. "This will seem more like physical therapy for you, and I will not sugarcoat this and tell you it will be easy to repair your soul. But if you believe in me and trust me, I will see you through this and restored. Perhaps you will even be greater than you were before, but there is no guarantee of that. What comes next is up to you. You have a choice to make, Norman. You can sit in that chair, or you can take my hand and walk with me into the unknown. I will respect your choice either way, and be by your side regardless of your decision. But it must be your decision, as I cannot make this one for you." Norman reached for the offered hand and grasped it with his weak fingers. Since the damage to his soul had been expressed in his mind as physical pain, the exercises God put Norman through were pure agony, the likes of which he had never experienced before. Many times, the priest broke down crying as he fell to the ground, with every fiber of his being on fire and screaming at him. God was patient, and while he forced the exorcist ever onwards with new exercises and activities, he never demanded more than Norman was capable of. What seemed like years passed in a blur of activity, of physical exercise, of reading great books and learning more than he was ever allowed to in the Host Ascendency. Norman spent a long period of time simply listening to the Creator explain things on how and why the universes were ordered the way they were. They spent centuries together in the timeless space of heaven, arguing philosophy and theology. All that time, the exorcist grew stronger and more capable, until one day he was able to do everything asked of him without needing assistance. Norman was sitting while leaning against one of the many trees at the bottom of a vast cylindrical structure he now saw as a massive bookcase which stretched beyond sight up into the sky. He was reading a book God had given him, written by someone named von Mauri. It was a collection of his discussions with the Creator deity. It was an interesting read, as the author discussed his viewpoint versus the society in which he had grown up in. Norman felt a kindred sense of solidarity with this man, as von Haupteri's society was similar to his own, minus having a creator telling him he was their god. The Legion Master came to sit next to the exorcist under the tree. A small bird immediately came to sit on his upturned knee, singing his heart out. Animals of all sizes had come over the centuries to see what Norman had been up to, but the birds were ever present. The master produced a few seeds for the songbird. Norman now knew to be a hologram or an illusion, and the bird began happily munching away at his meal. "How are you today, Norman?" God asked. "I feel like myself again. I feel whole. Thank you. You must have had a million better things to do than babysit me in this place." "Perhaps, but none that were more important to me at this time. I have a favor to ask, one in which you are wholly capable of declining, if you wish." Norman closed the book in his hands and turned to look at the being of spirit who had been so patient with him through his struggles. "I owe you my life." "As you wish," God replied, amused. He held out his hand, and there was a silver clerical collar between his fingers. "You do not have to, but I would be honored if you would come work for me. You have a unique viewpoint and set of experiences that I think would greatly benefit people in need. Lilith would be your boss, but you two do seem to work well enough together, so I doubt there will be many problems." "You want me to be a priest for you?" "We call them pastors in the Legion, but yes. You also have unique skills as an exorcist. With demon incursions of populated areas on the rise, it would be prudent to have someone who could train mortals in sniffing them out. Besides, and please hear what I am saying, Norman, because your actions on Red Lake led to you drinking from the poisoned cup, you are no longer as you were. While not a true being of spirit, in that you do not need to sleep or eat, you have stopped aging. You are immortal. That means, unless killed by another being of spirit, you will never die. Just in case, though, you better stay away from firefights and large explosions, since you cannot exactly regrow limbs like a true angel. I'm getting off topic. Trust me on this. You will need something to do to stave off the madness of longevity. You can, of course, choose to go your own way, and you will not hurt my feelings. Regardless of the path you chose, you will need to find something to occupy your time." After all the being next to him had done, Norman did not hesitate as he reached out to take the silver collar. With his other hand, he reached up to take off his golden one, and he noticed the Legion Master was now holding a set of folded clothing which looked exactly like his own, just in the Legion colors of royal purple, black, and silver. There was even a tricorn hat with silver piping, and the emblem of Lilith's order of an open book with a chain flail for a bookmark. He had never seen another legionnaire wear such a hat, so it was obviously made for him in the style he was used to. He hesitated as he was about to get up and strip out of his old clothing, his old life, his old beliefs. "I do not have any training in your seminary," he said. "Is that going to be a problem?" God let out a bellowing laugh which startled the birds. "Out of everything you have experienced with me, you are worried about legality? How long have we spent together, arguing the same topics found in my churches? I think you will be fine. But if you must..." A large diploma appeared in the priest's lap. Norman undid the silver ribbon to unroll it, and read, "This certificate of ordination is hereby granted to Norman Sebastian Adelson Kant by me upon successful completion of our discussions, blah blah blah." Norman blinked. The silver-gilded white paper really did say blah 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 at the end. This is certainly a unique certificate to hang on the wall." God let out a mighty sigh, but he was smiling. "Okay, fine. You drive a hard bargain. Here." He held out a large dagger with a brilliant half-sphere of flawless sapphire on the pommel. "This is the actual, for real this time, badge of office for every legionnaire who comes to the understanding of who and what I am. You will find one like it on most every legate, and occasionally a random person on the street. They are impossible to duplicate because I make them myself. If anyone wants to complain because you haven't been," he made air quotes, "properly ordained, then you show them the dagger and tell them to come see me about it, and I will straighten them out." "So what do you say, Norman? The job is yours, if you would join us." The exorcist drew the dagger a few inches from its sheath. The intricate patterned blade seemed to glow with its own inner light. He was mesmerized by the infinitesimally small strands of silver light which seemed to move on their own like a kaleidoscope. He sheathed the dagger and asked, "When it comes time, will you help me decide what to do with my son? I do not know if I am strong enough or smart enough to make the right decision." God said nothing for a long time as he considered the request. He absently fed some of the birds before finally saying, "That was supposed to be your task alone, but you ask a fair trade for your services. Very well, I shall help you when the time comes. I will even do the deed if you cannot bring yourself to do it, if we find your son is beyond salvation." Norman stood up and began stripping out of his Host Ascendency clothing to put on his new garb with the words, "Thank you, I accept your offer." He wanted to ask more questions about who his son was or where he was, but Norman knew he would not get a straight answer. After spending so much time with God asking questions, he also knew why.